So you're thinking about moving to Central Oregon. You've decided that Central Oregon is the place that you want to be, yet you're not sure where in Central Oregon is the right fit for you. Well, that's what today's video is all about. There are 5 incorporated towns in the Central Oregon region that Zach and I cover with our real estate service. And we want to touch on all 5 of those today to help you gain a better understanding of each and how they contrast with one another, what they have in common with one another, to hopefully give you that better, firmer grasp of an idea. So when you do arrive here, you know where you want to go. Is it Prineville? Is it Sisters? Is it Lapine? Is it Redmond? Or is it Bend? Okay, that's what today's video is all about, touching on the 5 incorporated towns within the Central Oregon area to help you find out and help you gain a better understanding of where exactly it is you want to explore upon your arrival. So if this video sounds like it's for you, stick around. We're going to be getting after it right now. Hey, if this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about living, eating, sleeping, working, playing, the good and the bad, the different styles of incorporated towns within the Central Oregon area, then subscribe to the channel. Tap that notification bell below so you can be the first to know about the current market here in Bend and surrounding sunny Central Oregon. My name's Ryan and I've lived in Bend for over 30 years. My business partner, Zach, and I, we get calls and texts every day from people just like you looking for help on making their smooth move to Bend or anywhere else here in Central Oregon. So whether you're moving in 9 days or 90, it doesn't matter to us. Give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, set up that Zoom, click on that Calendly link in the banner of our homepage on this channel or in any one of the comment sections of each video. And we can set up a Zoom and just kind of get off to the races to help you figure out where it is you want to be and what your needs are. So with that being said, let's jump into this video right now. This is kind of a unique style video that we're doing today. The 5 incorporated towns within Central Oregon: Bend, Redmond, Lapine, Sisters, and Prineville. Those are the primary areas in terms of incorporated towns that Zach and I provide service for any of our clients that move to the Central Oregon area. And they're all different in their own right, yet they're all very common in other areas as well. And so that's what we want to touch on today. Where is it that you want to live? You know you want to be in Central Oregon, but what style of town is the best fit for you? Is it fast-paced and bustling, progressive like Bend, or is it slow-paced and just kind of a calmer lifestyle like Prineville, or somewhere in the middle? That's what we want to touch on today. So we're just going to go through a little list here in no particular order and just talk about each of the various 5 incorporated towns that are within the Central Oregon area, show them to you on a map, talk about some of their geography, talk about some of the other factoids about them, how they are common with the other 4 and how they're uncommon with the other 4, to hopefully give you a better understanding of what each town in Central Oregon is all about. So let's just jump right in right now. Again, in no particular order, we'll start with Bend because that's kind of the focal point of this area. Most people are aware of Central Oregon because of Bend. And Bend is my hometown. I've lived in Bend since 1991 when the population sign said about 20,000 people. And it was more of a mill town back then. The old mill was actually still a mill. And so if you've ever visited Bend, we have that amazing old mill district there. A lot of office buildings up higher, and then a lot of retail and a lot of restaurants down below, right on the river, right next to the Hayden Homes Amphitheater. A lot of trails, a lot of paths that you can take. It's just really been commercialized and it's really geared towards attracting tourists. And that's the river portion where people float down the river every day during the summer. But back in 91, it was the old mill. That was the mill. There were logs stacked up there with sprinklers on them and everything. But since then, it's come a long way. Bend is a town of 100,000 people, very progressive, a lot of transplants from the California areas, the Seattle, the Portland areas, the Eugene areas. And so it's kind of a melting pot of a lot of different people from different areas, but they all have one thing in common. They want to figure out a way to live in Bend or Central Oregon because they love the outdoor lifestyle. And that's probably commonplace for a lot of people in other incorporated towns within Central Oregon as well, but they like the hustle and the bustle, the city vibe. Okay, we're starting to get a little city vibe in Bend as opposed to some of the other towns in Central Oregon that are still kind of sleepy, a little slower pace, but Bend is starting to pick up. Okay, we get 4 million visitors in the Central Oregon area every single year, and the majority of them pass through Bend at some point or another, whereas in other towns, they may never see any of those visitors, right? And so we have a very large city vibe, especially in the summertime on certain weekends when there's a big artist coming in to perform at the Hayden Homes Amphitheater. If there's another event like the Pole Pedal Paddle or Summerfest or Winterfest, I mean, it doesn't really matter. We just had Winterfest here. It was a big deal. But there's always something going on in Bend that's attracting a lot of out-of-town visitors, and a certain percentage of them decide that they want to live here in Bend after getting repeated exposures of visiting Central Oregon and Bend especially. But Bend has a lot of progressive restaurants, a lot of brand new startups. It's a great budding area when it comes to the local economy, as well as job growth, things of that nature. And there are just a lot of new people coming into the area. They're moving here. They're bringing their business concepts with them. It promotes job growth. It also creates diversity when it comes to job diversity. Whereas 20 years ago, we were primarily just a tourist town, okay? So service and hospitality was the primary industry for the majority of people. It's still that way, but it's starting to at least expand to other areas. And that's what makes Bend kind of a unique style small city. But it does feel very big sometimes. If we have 100,000 people or just over 100,000 people in this town living within the city limits, it feels like sometimes there's 200,000, maybe 250,000 people inside the city limits at any given moment based off of the visitors, people that are working that maybe live in other areas of Central Oregon. But it just feels like a big town, a big city sometimes. And that's okay, because that's what a lot of people are looking for. They come from Seattle, they come from LA, they come from San Francisco. They want to have that congestion. They want to have that faster pace of lifestyle. Yes, it's going to be probably a little slower than those big cities, but it still gives you a taste of what city life is like without the traffic. So that's something that's pretty interesting about Bend, the biggest town in Central Oregon, and also the most popular in terms of visitation. So that's the first town that we're covering in today's list series. Okay, city number 2, incorporated towns in Central Oregon. La Pine, Oregon, about 30 miles to the south of Bend, a little higher in elevation as well. If Bend's sitting at 3,600 feet, La Pine's probably sitting at 4,200 to 4,400 feet in elevation. So you can imagine there's a big discrepancy there in terms of its elevation. That also means one thing, more snow accumulation. Bend probably gets 30 to 40 inches of snow on an annual basis. La Pine probably gets closer to 70, maybe up to 100 inches of snow, depending on the winter, okay? La Pine, small town vibe, right? It's up in the sticks, okay? There's a lot of the homes and a lot of the neighborhoods are just kind of in the forest. The trees are much skinnier too at that higher elevation. We've got big, thick ponderosa pines down here in Bend at 3,600 feet. La Pine, the trees are very skinny. They just shoot up. I think it has a lot to do with the climate and the elevation change, but it's just kind of a forest there. Highway 97, ultimately, is the artery that goes right through La Pine. You've got downtown La Pine just off of that, a couple blocks, but it's a town of about 3,000 people within the city limits. It just became incorporated, by the way. It's the newest incorporated town in Central Oregon, 3,000 people roughly, but there's probably another 5,000 to 10,000 people out in the surrounding areas. And so people out in La Pine, typically, they like their space, they like the peace and quiet, and they don't like the hustle and the bustle of the big city that is Bend. So La Pine, very interesting, okay? Like I said, 30 miles to the south of Bend. People that live out there, they tend to like fishing, they like to go hiking, they like to go ride on their snowmobiles, they like their horses, things of that nature. We've got Paulina Peak, we've got Paulina Lake, we've got East Lake over there, we've got good access to Wickiup Reservoir. Going to the west, the Paulina and East Lake areas are to the east, about 20 miles or so. There is a great golf course in the La Pine area called Quail Run. We have the La Pine State Park where the little Deschutes is, and a lot of great things to do outdoors up in the La Pine area. In fact, Paulina and East Lake are just known for their fishing. Their brown trout, the state record brown trout, is actually from Paulina Lake, and there's probably the next state record in either East or Paulina Lake yet to be caught. But it is a fantastic area, and it's off the beaten path. So there are some people that will end up commuting from La Pine to Bend to work on a daily basis. The Bend-La Pine School District is all within one, okay? So La Pine, 30 miles away, is all part of the same Bend-La Pine School District, and some of the kids that live in La Pine will end up commuting to Bend and vice versa, but it's very rare when it comes to commuting from Bend to La Pine for school, but the opposite is true. So hopefully this gives you some context. Again, it's off the beaten path, even though Highway 97 goes right through it. A little bit higher of an elevation, slower pace of life, and ultimately speaking, people that live in La Pine are going to have to commute to Bend from time to time for certain resources that La Pine doesn't have to offer. But it's a great town, and it's also the second fastest growing town in Central Oregon. Number 3 of the incorporated towns in Central Oregon in today's video, Sisters, Oregon. Now, Sisters is at the very base of the Santiam Pass and the Cascade Mountain Range. Bend is about 20 miles to the east of those mountains, but it's still kind of situated at the foothills because at the very west edge of Bend, we start to slope up in elevation, 3,800 feet at the west edge of the Bend city limits, and then it just progressively goes up. But what's interesting about Sisters is that Sisters is 18 miles, about 20 miles or so to the west of Bend on the way to those mountains. That's the road to Eugene, Salem, Portland, etc. That's the Santiam Pass, that Highway 20, and then eventually Highway 22 goes up to Portland. But it's at a slightly lower elevation than Bend, even though it is further to the west, closer to those mountains. What's interesting is that they do still get way more snowfall than Bend does, just because it's so close in proximity to a lot of those clouds that get bunched up at the mountains, and then as a byproduct, Sisters ends up getting a lot more snow. But Sisters is a fantastic little town, very charming, Western style themed town, especially the downtown drag. It's very, very attractive for tourists in the summertime. There's about 3,000 people within the city limits there. There's probably another 3,000 to 4,000 people in the surrounding area. It's own little ecosystem over there. They're very independent in Sisters. They don't necessarily need to come to Bend on a regular basis, although they do. They can also revert to Redmond, which actually is a little bit closer in proximity to Sisters than Bend is. And Bend, Redmond, and Sisters kind of make up a little triangle. We'll show you on a map what that looks like. But again, Sisters is a fantastically charming town. They host the Sisters Rodeo every June. It's the biggest little show in the world, one of the better rodeos, probably in the West, but it's just a really fun event. The quilt show goes on in Sisters as well. There's all kinds of original and charming events that Sisters hosts on a regular basis. Black Butte Ranch is about 10 miles to the west. It's a fantastic resort style community with 2 awesome golf courses, 5 or 6 different swimming pools, a great bike path system, and all kinds of other amenities to take place and participate in. Camp Sherman is just about the same distance away from Sisters as is Black Butte, just on the other side of the road there and a couple miles further in. But that's where the headwaters of the Metolius River are. Great fly fishing area. Black Butte, of course, we just mentioned that. Great hiking butte there. Three Creeks Lake is just off the beaten path of Sisters as well. That goes up in elevation towards Broken Top, the Tam MacArthur Rim, all that stuff. It's just really a fantastic area. Aspen Lakes Golf Course. There's about 3 golf courses in that Sisters area, but a lot of ranch style homes. There are some subdivisions. A lot of very popular builders are over there too, just like they are in Bend and Redmond. Hayden Homes, Polish Homes, a couple other prominent builders, but then a lot of custom builds, right? So people that move to Sisters typically like their peace and quiet, similar to La Pine, but they also like a little bit more of a progressive lifestyle. And they also like maybe the proximity to other areas of Central Oregon, whereas La Pine might be a little bit more isolated as it's so far south. So the Redmond airport from Sisters is about a 20 to 25 minute drive. And say if we were doing the same comparison from La Pine, it's probably closer to an hour, just depending on traffic and whatnot. But hopefully that gives you some context. Sisters, a very charming little town, and it's just growing. It's the fastest growing town in the Deschutes County area here. So that's not going to be, let's see, is that the third one we've done? Third incorporated town that we've done. We're going to jump to the 4th here, and then we'll jump to the 5th and wrap up this video. Okay, the number 4 and not ranked number 4, but just the 4th one on the list today, the incorporated towns in Central Oregon. Redmond, of course. Okay, Redmond is the 2nd biggest town in Central Oregon, about 36,000 people. It's 15 miles to the north of Bend. Bend and Redmond are basically connected at the hip, right? There's the Highway 97 that goes right through, connects the 2 towns. They're both dual lanes the entire way. A lot of traffic, thousands upon thousands of cars traverse back and forth each and every day, going from Bend to Redmond, Redmond to Bend. People live in Bend, work in Redmond, and vice versa. But Redmond is a great town as well. Kind of a Western style blue collar town. It's progressively getting more like Bend. Okay, as each and every year passes by, there's a lot of people that end up moving to the Central Oregon area with Bend as their first choice. But then when they discover Redmond and the value, they choose Redmond, right? Median home price right now, $700,000 in Bend versus $500,000 in Redmond. Okay, there's a huge discrepancy there in terms of the price, but they're basically the exact same area. I mean, 15 miles apart, right? Redmond is also known as the hub of Central Oregon. That's where our commercial airport is. That's where our fairgrounds is. Okay, and that's very interesting in its own right, because obviously Bend doesn't have either of those, but Redmond does. Redmond, again, 36,000 people, a little bit more blue collar, tends to lean politically a little bit more right, although it's pretty down the middle at this point in time, Central Oregon in general. But it's a great town, 2 high schools there. There are talks that they're going to consolidate the 2 back into 1. We'll see what happens with that. But there are great shops. There are great restaurants. There's great businesses. Redmond is a very business-friendly community, probably a little bit more than Bend, even, to be honest with you. If you had to really do some due diligence on, okay, where's the best spot to open up a business? I mean, Redmond is actually very business-friendly, and they are welcoming business all the time. They work with you. They're trying to make it happen in Redmond as opposed to Bend. And so sometimes there's a few more hoops you have to jump through in Bend. But again, Redmond, great town, a lot of transplants, a lot of people coming in from other areas right now, and they choose Redmond over Bend. And Redmond, frankly, is one of the fastest growing towns in the entire state of Oregon. But again, it's close in proximity to Smith Rock State Park. It's close in proximity to the Crooked River, the Deschutes River. There are all kinds of activities to do in the Redmond area that otherwise Bend wouldn't have, like say the Dry Canyon, that 3-mile canyon that goes right through the center of town with all kinds of activities within it in its own right. But Redmond is a great town, close to Lake Billy Chinook, close over to Prineville Reservoir, all those things. And of course, these are the macro things within the Central Oregon area that everybody who lives here, no matter what town you choose, you get access to them. It's just maybe further to Lake Billy Chinook for a Bendite than it is for someone who lives in Redmond, but still very popular area, right? I mean, we all get these amazing outdoor amenities that we have at our disposal. It's just a matter of, okay, where do I want to live? Where's the best cultural fit for me? But Redmond's right there. It's fantastic. It's number 4 on the list today. Again, no particular order. Let's get to the 5th one right now, Prineville, and we'll wrap it up. Okay, Prineville, Oregon. Okay, another great town, 12,000 people. It's the county seat of Crook County. So the first 4 that we did in today's video are all within the Deschutes County area. And the 5th one, Prineville, that's going to be out in Crook County. It's the county seat, 12,000 people. That's where Les Schwab Tire Centers, that's where it was founded back in the 50s, if you can believe it or not. Prineville is a great town. It's off the beaten path. It's about 30 miles from Bend. It's about 25 miles or so from Redmond. Again, kind of a triangle, going to the east as opposed to the west with sisters. Bend, Redmond, Prineville, Bend, Redmond, sisters. But a great town, Western style town again. What's interesting is over the last 10 or 15 years, Facebook, Amazon, they put in these large data centers within the city limits of Prineville. The climate was perfect. The cost of the land was perfect for them. And so they've really added like this interesting caveat to the Prineville area. I think a lot of people that are longtime residents of Prineville probably didn't like it all that much. I mean, that's the way it is with a lot of small towns, but hey, they're here and you just have to adjust and adapt, right? But it's kind of put Prineville on the map a little bit. Very cute town. We've got a video that we've done about Prineville. We'll link a card in it right now for you guys to watch, but cost of living, average home or median home is probably $450 in that range right now. Again, much more affordable than say in the Bend or Redmond area, a little comparable to Redmond, but ultimately speaking, it's off the beaten path. It's a small town. People want that small town vibe, a little quieter, way less traffic, although some would beg to differ there. I mean, I was driving through there a month ago and it felt, well, I was like, okay, this town's starting to grow up. I don't go out to Prineville. It's probably the most isolated of the five, even more so than LaPine, because LaPine's at least on that drag of 97 where a lot of traffic goes through it every single day. Prineville's actually way out there, right? You actually have to go out of your way to go to Prineville. And if you're going to Prineville, it's for that specific reason. If you're not going to, like, say, Prineville Reservoir to recreate at the lake there with LaPine, you drive through it, right? It's part of the traffic circuit. It's one of the busier highways in the state of Oregon that it goes right through. But Prineville, way out there. It's isolated. So if you're looking for that type of peace and quiet, there's plenty of towns, ranch-style homes in and around Prineville. Then you can have some peace and quiet, privacy, etc. And that's something that would bode well. A lot of Prineville people are going to Redmond on a regular basis as opposed to Bend. They try to avoid Bend. They don't want the big city. It's a little bit further away, and for good reason. All the amenities that you really need are in Redmond, as opposed to Bend. Sometimes Bend might have a few things other to offer that otherwise Redmond doesn't have, but people that live in Prineville will typically just commute to and from Redmond on a regular basis. Brasada Ranch is nearby, Pronghorn, the golf course is nearby. You've got the Prineville Country Club. You've got Meadow Lakes Golf Course. You've got golf, lower elevation, right? We're probably looking at like 2,800 feet in elevation as opposed to Bend 36. Way less snow accumulation, more of a banana belt style climate. So if it's cold and icy and snowy in Bend, there's a good chance that it's 55 degrees and sunny in Prineville. They will get snow, but significantly less. So that's something to keep in mind. But again, a great area, very up and coming, not a bad place for investors. Dare I say it, this town is going to continue to grow as it's been placed on the map by the Amazons, the Facebooks, etc. But again, it's about a 25-minute drive to the Redmond airport. So you've got that airport nearby if you need access. But a great little small town, great charm as well. And it's progressively getting bigger and bigger with more people coming and bringing their ideas. Okay. Kind of a little bit more like, hey, no, we don't want you here. That type of vibe. I mean, Ben's had that vibe since the 70s. And hey, too late. It's too bad, right? It's just the way it is. But I mean, I can remember, I see old clippings in our local newspaper sometimes talking about how Bend is becoming more like LA or San Francisco back when they crossed 10,000 people in population. It's kind of funny to look at looking back, but I mean, there's nothing that we can do. So we just embrace it, right? But yeah, Prineville's a great little town and it's off the beaten path, so way more privacy, but all these 5 incorporated towns are pretty much connected some way or another within the Central Oregon landscape. We're going to do another video soon about the unincorporated towns of Central Oregon and where would be a good spot for you to live in an unincorporated area. You'd probably still technically be a Bendite or somewhere in Redmond, but you still have these other little pockets that have different names like Tumalo or Terrebonne or Alfalfa or Powell Butte. I mean, so we'll get to that later. But yeah, hopefully this video served you well. If you haven't done so already, like the video, please. Maybe drop a comment. What else do you want to see us do? And of course, reach out to us when it's your time. We want to help you guys figure it out the first time you get here. So that's why we're trying to provide as much context and education as we possibly can about the Central Oregon area, because we're all here for a specific reason. We love living here, the sunshine, et cetera, the outdoors, but there are different versions of Central Oregon. And so that's what we're trying to help you figure out before you get here. But again, my name's Ryan, licensed broker with eXp Realty. Thank you so much for watching. We will plan on seeing you guys on the next video. Thanks and have a great day.